Cooperrider Show, keeping you informed on what's going on right here in Kentucky.
And welcome, everybody, to another amazing day right here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. On today's show, we'll be digging into House Bill 258, a vote that took place on the House floor recently, a bill to deal with the torture of animals. And while the bill widely passed, there was some interesting no votes, 8 no votes, from members that generally you consider the more liberty, more conservative-minded individuals in our House. So we'll be digging into what that bill was. Why did they vote that way? Additionally, U of L wants $25 million to build a rural cancer research center that isn't very rural at all. And then finally, the Herald-Leader misses the mark completely on an article where they write about Senator Berg's comments from last week, where she called pedophiles maps, minor attracted persons. So we'll have all that and more today. But starting us off, Bing AI. So we've recently seen Google just took up billions of dollars in loss on their AI. Why? Because they put out an AI that when you would request things like images of individuals, like give me an image of a Viking or give me an image of even a Nazi, they refuse to render an image of like a white male. So you'd say, render me an image of a Nazi. It would obviously be a white male, but they kept rendering things like Asian women and black men as Nazis. They would render black men as Vikings. It was asked to render a picture of our founding fathers, and they made them black. And so what was discovered was that this Microsoft AI was basically embedded with some sort of programming that whenever you put in anything, any request for an image, they would make sure they put it through a DEI filter and would only spit out, people and individuals, or at least predominantly spit out people and individuals that fit this intersexual hierarchy. Well, it seems that Bing AI, that's Microsoft's AI called Copilot, may have a similar issue. Because recently, and it was going around online, I'd posted it, somebody sent it to me, I posted it online. Microsoft's AI, when asked if Bashir is gay, Andy Bashir, would respond with, he is, in fact, an openly gay man. They would say that in there. They would even say in some responses that he's married to his wife, Brittany, and then would later on say, and he's gay. He's gay. And so that raises a question. Why is it? There is next to nothing. I mean, obviously, I've heard rumors that Bashir had a boyfriend in college and yada, yada, yada. But, those kinds of things exist for anybody in the public life, in public circle. There's no real actual evidence that Bashir is gay. That's all obviously conjecture. And anybody in the public eye, you're going to hear those things going around. But in this case, it did render that Bashir was gay. And that makes you wonder, is Bing's Microsoft's AI doing the same exact thing as Google's AI? Where it is, if it can say that somebody's gay or a member of the LGBTQ community at all, it will now say it, because it is also trying to deliver answers in this DEI lens, this diversity, equity, inclusion, intersectionality lens. So it does lead to some questions. That was just a funny story I wanted to mention, that according to Bing's AI, according to Microsoft, they do believe that Bashir is gay, is homosexual. So there you go. That's an interesting take. Like I said, I'm not going to say they're seeing something I'm not or something. I just think it's funny that they think he's gay. But anyways, I also want to draw our attention to House District 91. That is a House race between Bill Wesley, who is the incumbent, and he's being challenged by some other person. It really doesn't matter who it is, because this is about Bill Wesley. That's who we need to talk about. So it appears that Bill Wesley has gotten onto the negative side of the establishment. We don't really have to guess why Bill Wesley has attracted negative attention from the establishment. It's quite obvious when you look at the bills he has put forward, because over the course of 21, 22, even into 23, he's put forward some very good conservative pieces of legislation. But to them, he's too far out there. For an example, him proposing a bill saying that, we shouldn't mandate masks in schools to make it illegal to mandate masks for COVID. And when challenged on the floor, why are you trying to take away, mandate that schools can't require masks? Isn't there local control, so on and so forth? He simply responded with, well, because they don't work, which... Awesome, Bill Wesley. Awesome point. Ahead of the curve, apparently ahead of all the scientists out there too as well. But this has upset the establishment, and they've given an all clear, go ahead, let's see if we can't take out Bill Wesley. Now, Bill Wesley isn't typically thought of when people talk about the quote unquote conservative or liberty legislators as often, but he does have a pretty conservative track record, at least. He definitely isn't part of the problem. And this may be something where he isn't typically viewed and isn't as protected as some of the more conservative members, such as Maddox and Rayborn and Doan and others, where they're probably pretty safe. They think maybe, well, if we can pick off Bill Wesley, we can send a message to everybody else because he's conservative and he's trying to pass legislation that they just think is, he's part of that crazy right wing. And believe it or not, our legislature and a lot of our politicians, and you see this oftentimes, is led by individuals that think normal conservative viewpoints, the viewpoints held by the vast majority of conservatives, is somehow crazy or far right wing or needs to be stamped out. They're causing us too many problems. And you can tell that they've given the open season attack on Bill Wesley because Andy Barr and Representative Comer have come out and endorsed Bill Wesley's opponent. Now, obviously, they're not going to issue this endorsement unless the establishment has signed off on it. And I'll tell you a little secret here. Your federal delegation has no clue what's going on in the state. Don't bother asking your congressman, your senators about something going on in the Kentucky legislature, something going on in Kentucky politics. They don't pay any attention. They have no clue. They literally know less than your county chairman probably knows about it, okay? What they rely on is their office staff and their constituent services to keep them abreast of what's going on, and when they walk into situations to kind of be aware of things that need their attention. This means that a lot of times when it comes to things like endorsements and those kinds of things, it's not that the congressman themselves is picking it. It's that this apparatus, this establishment apparatus of bureaucrats and people who are professionally employed to be politicians and be political, but they're not elected. Kind of this the deep state, as people call it. They will direct these federal delegations to make endorsements. I mean, it's the same thing, and we see it, whether you want to believe it or not, we see it with Trump. Trump has no idea what's going on locally. I mean, he just doesn't know what's going on in these areas, and he's handing out endorsements based upon him trusting. I mean, you can't expect Trump, for example, take the governor's election where he endorsed Cameron. You can't actually expect Trump to be aware of what's going on in Kentucky and who would be actually the best candidate. He is but a man. He is one man. So he relies on aides and, advisors to keep abreast of these situations and give them good advice. But if you're surrounding yourselves with these advisors and aides, where do you find them at? Who do you get them from? Well, there's only a certain sect of people out there that are basically available to be full-time politicos while not actually being a politician themselves. And those are going to be people, they know what side their bread's buttered on. They're worried about their futures, their careers. They're worried about being important. They're worried about getting that high-end job appointment, paying over 6 figures a year. That's what they're worried. They're worried about their future as a potential lobbyist. That's what they're worried about. And so they're going to be directing these federal delegations, people like Trump, to make endorsements, even if it's not what's best for the people, and it's not necessarily those individuals' faults. They just don't know what's going on. The establishment is stepping in, telling them what to do. And the longer you're in politics, and most of these people have been in politics for a very long time, the more you trust different people, but you have no idea how they have been corrupted. People ask, why is Mitch McConnell still in office? This is why. He has a machine. He has a establishment group of people, and those people rely on McConnell to stay in office in order for them to remain relevant and powerful. And so they keep pushing somebody who's clearly over their prime to stay in office. You see the same thing with Biden. So it's just something to talk about. I would be, if I were you and I'm in House District 91, I would definitely be looking at that race, see what's happening to Bill Wesley, look at his voting record, and make a decision. I think it's pretty obvious in that race for me that I would be supporting Bill Wesley. But, that's not necessarily endorsement. I'm just saying if I was there and and I'm looking at my representatives, I'm saying, Bill Wesley looks pretty good to me. That's just my opinion. Well, coming up after this, we'll be digging into House Bill 258, took place on the floor. You're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. And you are back with the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. Recently, we saw House Bill 258 being voted on the floor. It passed by wide margins, like 90 yeses. And there was a number of no's, including people like Josh Calloway, Shane Baker, Savannah Maddox, Felicia Rayborn. These people are normally the more conservative, the liberty-minded people. And they're taking a look at this bill, House Bill 258, and said, no, I don't want to vote yes on this. But yet 90 people did. And so I wanted to find out why. I wanted to dig into why was it that this House Bill 258, which is a bill to further criminalize torture of animals, why they'd be against a bill that nobody else seemed to have an issue with. So first, I watched all the committee hearings, I watched the floor comments, and I reached out to some of those legislators who voted no. So I'm going to go through on this bill a combination of all the information that I have gathered and looking at maybe why they voted no. But I don't want it in any way for you to think that I'm actually representing the exact reason that these legislators voted no. Obviously, I did talk to them, but I think it would be best if you want to know the exact reason why each of these legislators voted no on this House Bill 258. I think it'd be best if you went ahead and reached out to them directly to hear an exact answer from them. So, but otherwise, I'm going to go through this and see in the bill, if I'm being critical of the bill, what were the issues I would see. And the first big issue I see personally with this bill is it's never really answered. I can't tell exactly what this bill would handle situations with like farming and livestock, etc. So the bill makes it intentionally illegal to intentionally kill a dog or cat unless you're like a veterinarian or something like that. So, you couldn't put down your own dog, for an example, or something like that, right? And so I looked at the provision as to why, and, as always on the show, we like to do something that you're not often going to see on other shows, and that is I do like to read the important parts of the bill to you exactly so you know what's being said. Because you'll see media and everybody else generalize. They'll say things planning on you not going to go look yourself. They'll say things and misrepresent what a bill does or says in order to fit whatever agenda they may have, and that's an issue we'll dig into a little bit later on. But they will, and I don't want to ever do that. I want you to understand what the bill says and why this could be an issue. So this is what it says. It says nothing in this section shall apply. This is the important part about exemptions, right? So the rest of the bill is like, hey, you can't kill a dog, can't cage a dog while depriving it of food and water. You can't restrain dogs in a manner that's cruel, and so on and so forth. And so, but this is the part about exemption. So what's exempt from this? So it says, nothing in this section shall apply to the killing or injuring of a dog or cat without intent to cause or without wanton disregard of increasing or prolonging the pain, suffering, or death of a dog or cat in accordance with license to hunt, fish, or trap. So this shall not apply to killing or injuring of a dog, right? In accordance with license to hunt, fish, or trap for humane purposes, for veterinary, agriculture, spaying or neutering, or cosmetic purposes, or breed-specific alterations such as cropping of ears, docking of tails, or declawing of cats that all be done by a veterinarian for the purpose of relating to sporting activities, including but not limited to training for organized dog or cat shows or other animal shows in which a dog or cat or both participate, for bona fide animal research activities, for in defense of self or another person against an aggressive diseased dog or cat, in defense of a domestic animal against an aggressive or diseased dog or cat, for animal or pest control, or for any purpose authorized by law. And so that's what exactly says. But I'm unclear on some aspects of this that would lead me to ask a lot of questions. And for moving forward, okay, so when you think of dogs and cats, and I think this is part of the problem that people have when discussing this, when you think of dogs or cats, you're thinking of your fluffy teacup that lays on the couch all day, or I have a dog, her name's Tuna. She's a nice fluffy dog, and love her to death. She's a great dog. And so, but I also recognize that not every dog is that way. And so what if I replaced these words with coyote, right? Now, if a coyote is attacking livestock or even threatening livestock, because this is important because it says you can do it in protection of a domesticated animal. But, let's not forget that cats can be found pretty feral. I mean, house cats are already not exactly super domesticated, whether you like it or not. They don't love you, just so you know. Cats don't love you. I'm just kidding, of course, but I'm not. Anyways, but cats can be found pretty feral out and about. Same with dogs, especially in rural areas. So you've got crops, you've got garden. Maybe you lease your property out for duck hunting or some other kind of hunting, and you make a living this way, which is a common thing, especially out west, Western Kentucky. Duck hunting and giving up duck hunting leases, very common. Now, we have no problem, though, with people shooting coyotes. In fact, we have no problem with it that the threat of a coyote is so understood in the agriculture and rural communities that like just the threat of a coyote on a person's land is so obvious that killing a coyote, there's no season, there's no bag limits, there's really not a whole lot of hunting restrictions on them. I mean, you can hunt them at night with night vision, but what is a coyote but a wild dog breed? But now, if somehow instead of a wild coyote, you have a dog or cat that is on your land or landowner, are you now forbade from protecting their livelihood exactly? I mean, it says for pest management, but what does pest management mean? Does it mean if somebody's dog gets out and they keep attacking your chickens, or not even attacking, because obviously you can defend your chickens, this law says, but if it keeps putting stress on your animals, I mean, just a dog walking by, cows and things can upset them and cause them to move around. That could cause them to hurt a leg and they become lame. Like, this is a big problem. So if a domestic dog gets out and keeps getting out and keeps going around the area, quote unquote, domestic dog, well, is it a pest or is it not? Are you forbade from protecting your livelihood or are you not? I mean, those are real questions here. I'm not saying it's nice. You shouldn't torture and kill house pets, generally speaking, but we got to remember that there are animals out in rural areas and not all of them are exactly house pets or very well trained. And if it's causing a lot of problems for somebody else's property, and animals are somebody's property, do they have a right to defend their property, and to what level does it go? And to what level does this bill protect that idea that you can defend your farmland? So that's one issue I see with the bill. Now, here is a huge problem with the bill, though. So under this law, it makes now the abuse of an animal a Class D felony. So to abuse an animal is a Class D felony, okay? That is the same punishment as second-degree child abuse and a greater punishment than third-degree child abuse, which is only a misdemeanor, not a felony. When we make laws, we're saying, what do we value in this world? And what this law says, because of the level of punishment versus the level of punishment we offer to child abuse, is that somehow a dog or cat is somehow, abusing a dog or cat is somehow worse than abusing a human child. Because it elevates the punishment for animal abuse to equal or pass some instances of child abuse. In what world ever is the abuse of an animal somehow morally worse than the abuse of a human child as a child? And this comes to questions of value. I mean, this shouldn't even be controversial. It shouldn't be at all controversial or uncomfortable for me to say that your dog or cat being hurt by somebody isn't the same and doesn't carry the same, shouldn't carry the same punishment as your child being hurt by somebody. As I said, I love my dog, but my dog ain't my son. My son is worth more than my dog, morally, valuably, and should be worth more to society than my dog is. And like I said, this shouldn't even be controversial. Now, here's the third reason that it's possible that individuals didn't vote yes on this legislation. There are several pieces of great legislation regarding child abuse and protecting minors that is pending, can't get hearings, can't get votes on the floor. And when many of these people are going to leadership asking them to move their bills, what are they telling them? They're telling them, we don't have the time, it's too controversial, blah, blah, blah. But hey, we do have the time, and we have the ability to elevate the punishment of animal abuse above that of abuse of children. We have time for that. That's not controversial. But protecting children, that is controversial. I mean, to give you an idea, you have House Bill 191 to require local boards of education to allow parents and guardians an opportunity to orally recite passages from materials, programs, or events subject to appeal, and require immediate removal of material, program, or event if the board denies a parent or guardian the opportunity to orally recite the passages. They're talking about there is that when you're reading, these parents are reading from books that they're finding in their kids' libraries, and in these school board hearings, they're telling them, no, you can't read that out loud. It's too graphic. But it's okay for, of course, their kid to read it. And you have House Bill 241 to declare legislative findings related to pornography, define terms, establish a civil cause of action against any commercial entity that publishes matter harmful to minors on the internet without obtaining age verification. So that's an age verification for pornography bill. And then you have House Bill 450, require parental consent for a minor to get on social media. We have seen the rates of mental health and suicide that a lot of research is saying that social media is a big, big cause of. So you have bills regarding the protection of minors from things like pornography, sexual abuse, suicide, but we can't find the time or wherewithal to pass that. But we can find the time and ability to pass a bill that elevates the abuse of dogs or cats past that of the abuse of a human being. What kind of values do we have here? I mean, you could do both, protect humans and animals if you want. But if you only have time for one, are you saying then it shouldn't be humans? Humans aren't worth the time? And we should never, ever be saying that the abuse of an animal is somehow worse than that of the abuse of a human, no matter the situation. Well, coming up, University of Louisville wants $25 million for a cancer center. We'll be digging into that story. You're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. And you're back with the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider, your source for Kentucky politics. University of Louisville Cancer Center. University of Louisville wants to build a cancer center in Bullitt County, and they want $25 million from the state legislature to do it. And they want it for what they call a rural cancer treatment center that they say will be off the exit of 121 in Bullitt County. And this is absolutely a ridiculous ask for many important reasons. First, they call it a rural cancer treatment center and say it'll be better for those coming out of town. The Kentucky Lantern wrote an article about this where they cited, a woman talking about how it was difficult for her, or it can seem daunting task to go to downtown Louisville, mainly due to traffic. That's what they talk about, right? And so they say, well, if we put this on out of town and in the rural parts, well, then it might be easier for people to get to. So when I say rural cancer center, you would think that this would be like a rural cancer center. Like it would be out in the sticks or out maybe a little bit farther and in a place where, it's just completely for those, it's just completely inconvenient to get to Louisville and really cuts down on their travel time. Well, according to Google Maps, the location that they're looking at, that they say they want to build this at, is only in 5 o'clock traffic, by the way. I looked in 5 o'clock traffic, is only 24 minutes away from the cancer center that's downtown in 5 o'clock traffic. 24 minutes. If you think you need a cancer center, a second one, that's especially for the rural folks, shouldn't it be like, I don't know, somewhere rural? Maybe at least an hour or so away from the downtown clinic? Not 24 minutes in rush hour? I mean, the construction cost alone is more than $1 million a minute in drive time. I mean, come on, it's for cancer treatments too. Like, who's going to say, well, I was going to go get cancer treatments, but it's not 20 minutes closer, so never mind, I'll just die. Now, I understand. Louisville can be seen as daunting, and I acknowledge that. But if you actually want to fix this problem, you want to make it easier for rural folks to get out there, you don't want them driving as far, then actually move the center, I don't know, farther than 20 minutes away. Put it somewhere rural. Not on the outskirts of the suburban area of Louisville. I know to people who live in Louisville, that might seem like a rural area, but it's not. Okay? Put it an hour, move it another 30, 40 minutes south. All right? So that way it's 30 minutes from Bullitt County, but you don't have to go downtown. That's a pretty reasonable drive. And then it's closer for everybody out farther. But instead, they're going to call this rural and ask for $25 million to save 24 minutes of drive time. Now, that's my take. And it's based on simple facts, logic, pointing out the folly. However, white race hustler and so-called columnist for the Courier-Journal, Joe Girth, has a different take on why they want to build the center. And this take isn't logical. It's actually very racist. And that is that white people are afraid of black people in Louisville. No, I'm not kidding. That is what he said. So he retweeted a line from the Kentucky Lantern article talking about this. And in that line that he retweeted, it said that some people don't mind driving, but they don't want to come downtown. That was a line from the article. So he retweeted that line and said, translated, some Kentuckians fear black people more than they fear cancer. What? I mean, in the article, the woman literally talks about how daunting the traffic is and how it could be even harder for the older people that may find themselves going to this center. But Girth, he needs to make it about race. But in doing so, he becomes extremely racist because what connection is he drawing here? Now, is he saying that people are specifically afraid of downtown because of just, black people existing? They're just afraid of black people existing. They see a black person, they're like, oh no, I'm afraid. No, of course not. People are afraid. If you are afraid of downtown Louisville, you're afraid because of crime. And there's many businesses that are afraid of downtown Louisville. That's why it's turning into a ghost town. That's why even the gas station Thornton's has moved out of downtown because they can't deal with the crime. But we've heard leftists like Girth say this before. When you say this is a high crime area, they'll say, what you really mean is that's a black area. You're just being racist. That's a racist dog whistle. Because to people like racists, that Girth, who is a racist, saying that being afraid of crime, in my opinion, is a racist, saying that being afraid of crime equals being afraid of black people, but that is racist on his part. So saying you're afraid of crime means you're really afraid of black people because, according to Girth, black people are all criminals. I mean, I know we do whataboutism and just imaginisms, but let's just do that here. Just indulge me for a second. Just imagine that Donald Trump said, people fear black people because they commit crimes. How much would people jump all over him from the left on that? But when someone specifically says, on the right, I fear crime, they say, oh, well, you really mean black people because black people commit crimes and therefore you're racist. That's what you really mean. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yet he will continue to keep his job on this because that's exactly the kinds of people that the Courier-Journal loves to hire. That's exactly who our local media loves to hire. They love to complain. Why is nobody reading our stuff? Why can't we make money? We need you to donate to us, a for-profit business. We need you to donate to us to stay alive. Why is everybody filing journalists? You're not getting your information from the right places. You all are going to unvetted sources, and that's absolutely, we can't handle that. That's against the rules. We're really upset about it. We hear them saying this all the time. Local journalism matters. Well, you see why people aren't reading your rag. Why people aren't paying for it. You get people like Joe Girth, an actual racist, in my opinion, calling people saying, oh yeah, I don't like the traffic, racists. Why won't they read our paper? We only called them racist for not liking the traffic. I wonder what it could be. But in the same vein of literally insulting your viewership, insulting their intelligence, and completely missing the point, it's not just the Courier-Journal who's got a problem. It's the Herald-Leader as well. And one of their writers, and I've called her out many times here, this Alex Akisto individual, writing this article, which is in Politics and Government. This is not an opinion article, by the way. She says this is a factual argument, don't you know? And she wrote an article titled, KY Lawmaker Criticized for Implying Pedophiles Could Benefit from Child Sex Dolls. Now, obviously, I had to do a little bit of a advisory here. We're going to be covering a topic similar. We're going to have to go back into this topic involving Karen Berg. Many of you may remember Karen Berg last week came under a lot of fire for comments she made in committee. The exact comments she made, she referred to pedophiles as maps and a number of things. In fact, here, I'm going to play for you what she said in committee. Just to remind you, low parental advisory. This is what she said in committee, just to remind you.
I was completely unfamiliar with child sex dolls. So I had, of course, to Google it last night. I was a little scared to put it in my search engine, but I did. And apparently there is research on the subject. Not much, but there are what they call MAPs, minor attracted persons. And the limited amount of research that's done on these dolls, guys, suggests that they actually, for people who are attracted to minors, that these dolls actually decrease their proclivity to go out and attack children. That it actually gives them a release that makes them less likely to go outside of their home. And what was interesting is the research did not support the same conclusions for people who were adult attracted using dolls. That did not diminish their proclivity to engage other people, but for those with the... So I'm just a little concerned that, and like I say, the research is not very good. It is not comprehensive, but the research that is out there is conclusive.
So that's what she said. Okay. Let's hear the Herald-Leader's take on this. Let's dig into the Herald-Leader's take on what she said. We'll be digging into that after this short break. You're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. And you are back with the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. Before the break, we're digging into this Herald-Leader. We're starting to dig into this Herald-Leader article wrote by Alex Akisto. KY lawmaker criticized for implying pedophiles could benefit from child sex dolls. A little bit of an advisory for you all. Once again, we'll be talking about some adult themes because apparently our legislators can't stop putting their foot in their mouth when it comes to these things. But the Herald-Leader came in to comment on some criticisms, I guess, or whatever, but condemnation from people like me that Senator Berg has come across for comments she made last week in regards to a bill banning the sale of child sex dolls. And I played for you in the last segment what she said, but your big takeaways here. These are big takeaways. This is what you need to understand why that's so awful. One, she's implying that we need to, by saying maybe we should give these people child sex dolls so they don't go out and, attack children. And then she also called pedophiles MAPs, minor attracted persons. Okay. Both these things together, what they're doing and why they're so awful is it's the first few steps. And we can see this in trying to justify pedophilia as some kind of sexual identity. The same way gay, straight, bi, trans, all those number of things, to put that in the same category of, it's just somebody's sexuality. And so we just need to, we can't be too condemning and we can't be too mean to them. That's it. Because if you're saying, a person's attracted to kids, we should give them a child doll. And instead of calling them pedophile, a charged term that has connotations to it, we should call them minor attracted persons because that sounds nicer. That's the problem here, is that you're not meeting it by saying, this person's a monster. They don't deserve to be a part of society. We don't need to worry about them not feeling judged. They should feel judged. They should feel like a piece of trash because they are one. We don't need to call them a minor attracted we should call them a piece of crap garbage pedophile. And that should be how they're always referred to. Minor attracted person. Stop trying to make it sound nicer. They're horrible individuals that have no right to be a part of our society, period. That's why she came under condemnation. That's why what she said was so disgusting. But of course, Alex Akisto is a liberal. It's very obvious in how she writes. She's a liberal. And Senator Berg is also a liberal. And they both come from the same vein. And this entire point of what they said that was such a problem goes way over their head. Neither Berg nor Alex Akisto in this entire article apologized or for using the word maps. Now, Alex does use the word pedophile in the article, but she doesn't even recognize the use of the term maps. Minor attracted persons is offensive, is a problem. The thing you're trying to normalize, that is the issue. That was the entire problem with the whole thing. And it goes completely over their head. So what's this article say? Well, it starts off with a Kentucky Democrat is being widely criticized after implying during a legislative committee meeting last week that allowing pedophiles access to child sex dolls could help lessen their desire to abuse children. Lessen their desire. You know what might lessen their desire? Being in prison for their whole life. Capital punishment. Knowing if you touch a hair on that kid's head, the punishment is death. Maybe that might be what lessens their desire. But anyways. So the article goes on to say, and I'm just going to kind of go through the key parts. So she goes on to say here, but this is a little bit later on in the article, but Berg raised a point that drew sharp objections and suggesting that keeping child sex dolls legal may benefit pedophiles and decrease their likelihood to abuse children. For people who are attracted to minors, these dolls actually decrease their proclivity to go out and attack children. That it actually gives them a release that makes them less likely to go outside of their home, Berg said. Though divisive and controversial, discussions over the use of child sex dolls in this way is an ongoing debate among some experts documented in publications, including the National Institute for Health and Journal of Sex Research. Well, geez, oh Pete, if the experts are discussing it, that must mean it's A-okay. Because after all, those experts, they always get it right. They're never trying to push the boundaries and, rejigger society. Oh no, this is A-okay. Use of child sex dolls. Come on, that's A-okay because some experts are talking about it. They're talking about it. It may be divisive and controversial. Now, does she ever explain why it's divisive and controversial? No, she never touches on it. No, never in the entire article. And she goes on to quote Berg, saying that there are what we call MAPS, minor attracted persons. Who's we? There are what we call MAPS, minor attracted. Who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket, Karen Berg? It's only you and your sickos calling them MAPS. The rest of us call them pieces of trash, garbage, pedophiles. That's what we call them. We don't want to normalize anything they're doing, but anyways, there are what we call MAPS, minor attracted persons, and the limited amount of research done on these dolls suggests they actually, for people who are attracted to minors, these dolls actually decrease their proclivity to go out and attack children, that it actually gives them a release that makes them less likely to go outside of their home. I mean, just the very idea that somebody needs to imagine themselves messing around with kids is disgusting and a blight on society. Now, of course, she was corrected in the article. But after that, did Alex Akisto call her out at all for using the term MAPS? No, they didn't. Now, she then goes on to talk about the online backlash to Berg's comments. Though Berg voted to advance the bill and later apologized, saying she regretted the implication of her questions, her comments quickly went viral, drawing swift criticism from many, including some Kentucky Republicans and other right-leaning groups. That's weird. You know how they did that? It made it sound like she apologized, but then she was still attacked. No. She came out with a apology. I played that for you on the show. In fact, hold on. I'm going to play you her apology again. I think this is important. This is what Alex Akisto called an apology.
Guys, I think it's hilarious. I think what they put out there is so funny. If we can't talk about things openly as adults, then I don't think we can make good decisions. I just want to make sure people understand I did vote in favor of the bill, unlike several of my colleagues. For the record, for those of you who don't understand what's going on, a meme or a social something was put out last night It's cute, but I am getting amazingly anti-Semitic emails as a result. And I just want people to understand I voted in favor of this bill. So thank you.
Did that sound like an apology to you? No. But to Alex Akisto, that's an apology. She didn't apologize for anything. But anyways, of course, the real story here, though, is that Republicans pounce. Far-right leaning groups pounce. She goes through a few comments that they said, postings and things like that. And then she puts the icing on the cake. She puts the icing on the cake here. And this just goes to show how crazy and far left people like Alex Akisto is, and why their paper is dying, and why they won't have their jobs in the future. Because they can't stop making fun of their would-be customers. So here's what she says. She says, Burke has also been called disgusting and unbelievable and accused of sexualizing kids and called absolutely accused of sexualizing kids. She was only talking about sex dolls for pedophiles, but anyways, and called absolutely disgusting by the Daily Wire, a far-right media organization. She calls the Daily Wire a far-right media organization. The Daily Wire, led by Ben Shapiro. I don't think there's a single person in Daily Wire that initially supported Trump in the primary. They're fine with him now, but at first I think they're mostly for DeSantis. I don't think there's... Ben Shapiro, the leader of the Daily Wire, he is for sending aid to Ukraine. He thinks that Mitch McConnell did an okay job. And you're going to call him far-right? What does that mean you think of the rest of us? The rest of us conservatives that make up the vast majority of the base and make up the vast majority of the people in Kentucky by the fact of registration and how much people like Donald Trump win by. But to Alex, we're far right. And then she wonders why we don't buy her paper. Well, y'all, that's what we have time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. I thank you all so much for joining me. We're back here tomorrow. Have a great rest of your